Welcome, everyone, to Two Scoops of Woo, where we are delivering metaphysical flavor on a cone of logic. And we are asking the questions out loud. And speaking of out loud, to your amusement this evening, and much to my chagrin and probably some regret, we have brought Carol Quinn on to talk about crystals tonight. Carol and I have been talking about crystals. I've been learning from her for a number of years, and she's getting back into teaching, which is super exciting. So we'll get to hear about that this evening. She has an incredible amount of training and certifications from some of the greatest crystal studies available, and has always been dedicated in that direction, and now is coming back out and sharing it with others. So we're so blessed to have you, Carol. Thank you for agreeing to join us on Two Scoops of Woo.
Thank you, Jason. I'm so excited to be here. And you promised me I could tease you a little bit, so I'll make sure I sprinkle some of that in throughout the interview. But thank you. I'm very honored, and I'm really honored to be there. And thank you all for showing up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, little teasing's already occurred where that's a pretty much a guaranteed, especially when Carol and I together, and it's all in good fun. Oftentimes Carol and I are the only ones laughing, so if we hit one of those moments, and everybody else is stunned, we probably did something right, me and Carol in our friendship. So, I can take the lumps and actually enjoy it because it's kind of fun. So tonight we're going to talk about crystals, and we really want to get some deeper of the questions answered, of not just for me about the original questions or the everyday questions, but also about a couple of things that you are really specialize in and that I've been blessed to learn from you. One is about master crystals, and the other is about crystal grids. So I'm just gonna put that in our intention this evening, and hopefully get back to that in our conversation. And at this point, I would say, following our tradition, Darlene, let's pass it off to you for our first question tonight.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Carol, so much for joining us this evening. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Yes, I have always loved stones. Even as a kid, I remember just loving the stones and the different colors, and just stones I would just see walking around outside. But in the past few years, I've started collecting some of these beautiful stones, and I want to know what to do with them. But before that, I want to ask, what do we actually call them? I never know if I'm supposed to call it a gemstone or a crystal, or what technically are they?
So, if I was a geologist, I could spit out all the differences between a rock, a stone, and a crystal. It all has to do with their molecular structure. But I was going to actually, that would be a preemptive comment I would make too, is that I will interchange crystals and stones words. When I refer to crystals, I could be meaning a stone. So a stone, to me, a crystal is something like you see like a clear quartz or an amethyst or a citrine. Their molecular structure is very specific. And then when you start talking about stones and rocks, their molecular structure gets a little bit different. And that's all very specific in geology, which I am not an expert in. So because you're using, most people that will be seeing this video are in it for the woo-woo purposes and not the geological purposes. So I think you're safe to use whatever term you want to use. Gemstones, to me, though, is something that's a very high quality. So you can use ruby, for example. You can get the beautiful, clear rubies that are very expensive, but you can also get like what I would refer to as common ruby, which is not going to be transparent or translucent. They're going to be non-see-through. They're going to be a little more denser, but they still carry all the properties of what you would say a ruby would carry, if that makes sense.
So it's kind of like purebreds versus mixed breeds, essentially, if we're thinking about animals in a way too.
Yeah, well, yeah, except Ruby saying, no, that's not true. I'm still a Ruby through and through. But it's, and unfortunately, I didn't even think of bringing the difference, but yeah, you could look at it that way. It's just that, again, clear quartz is a good example. You would still call it quartz, but you have quartz that you can't see through, and you have that really clear, beautiful AAA quality quartz, it's still considered to be a quartz. And because I believe all stones and all quartz are sentient beings, they will argue with me saying, we're just as good. Like a milky quartz that you find hiking and that you pick up is as powerful, if not more powerful, than something that you paid $300 a kilo for at a show, because it's a AAA quality. So I try not to, for my purposes, to get too caught up in if I misinterpret and say a stone when it should be called a rock or it should be called a crystal, because basically the people I speak to are all using it for spiritual and energetic purposes. And I am very much more careful if I happen to be talking to a geologist and just saying, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is a pretty thing that I'm holding in my hand. I don't know the makeup, the atomic makeup of it. You know, I can't tell you all the carbon and water molecules in it and such. So does that make sense, Darlene?
Yes. So from the spiritual aspect of the stones that we're talking about, the woo-woo aspect, we wouldn't be wrong to call ocean jasper a crystal?
No, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't take any offense whatsoever.
Okay.
I would probably refer to it as a stone, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. Again, it's fine. I don't get caught up on that. But yes, you can call an ocean jasper a crystal. Most people, again, we tend to stereotype things. And so when you say crystal, most people are going to automatically go to quartz crystals, right? And think of it that way. But a lot of ocean jasper, at least the ones I've seen, you will even see if they have the little divots in it, like the little caves that form within it, they have little crystals growing inside of it too. So I think you're okay. No one should arrest you for saying that.
No crystal police coming.
No crystal police. No crystal police.
What kind of siren would they have?
So you were saying though, because that was really interesting between the rubies and different kind of rubies. Is there a difference, or is there a quality difference or a quality scale where you would say it's better to get this kind of one that's more expensive, or is there a difference, I guess, in quality or power? Or
in power, no. Quality, sure. And that just depends on how much of a crystal snob you are. I mean, do you want to spend $500 a kilo for a specific type of quartz, and that's where you're going to get the water clear quartz? Or do you want to spend $40 a kilo and maybe have some, it not be as clear or have some inclusions in it? I handpick all of my stones to the best of my ability. Sometimes when I'm buying bags of tumbled stones, I can't pick through individual ones, but I actually look for the more imperfect quartz because they are more perfect in their healing ability. Because you think of us as humans, who are the best healers? It's the wounded healers. It's those that carry the wounds within them. So when I started looking at, well, I've always been into rocks since I've been a kid, but probably about 25 years ago, 7 years ago, I would drag my kid around when she was little and we'd go into stores and I would look at, when I would see quartz, I didn't know anything about quartz at the time, but I would always look for ones that had rainbows in them. And I still to this day, when I buy quartz for my store, I look to make sure that they have a rainbow in. So most of my quartz have rainbows because it brings in rainbow energy. But inherently, when a crystal is formed and produces a rainbow, it's got a fracture within it. And then it has been fractured within, and then it finishes growing. So to me, I purposely avoid buying really expensive stones because I think that the less expensive stones, or quality, shall I say, is just as powerful, if not even more powerful than, you know, a pristine, beautiful quartz. Then you're afraid to use them. I mean, I bought a quartz skull once that I won't even tell you how much money I spent on it. The quality was so magnificent. I couldn't believe it. And I sleep with my skulls, and I bought 2 of these babies that were so, so expensive. I slept with them together. They barely touched each other and it cracked. I broke part
Wow.
of it off, and I've had that skull that I spent this horrible amount of money on less than 24 hours, and I already broke it. So I'm like, I'm not ever doing this again. It's not worth the money. But I bought them because they had these amazing rainbows in them, not because they were this beautiful, high quality quartz. But
So this brings me into a question. You mentioned the skulls. What is the purpose of crystal skulls?
so skulls to me, like I will show you, I have my master,
out the
one of my
big
master
boy.
skulls.
Uh-oh.
He's a Super 7, and he's 15 pounds, and his name is Kilgaro. Now, crystals in general are sentient beings. They are just like us. They don't move as fast as us, right? But they have a consciousness to them. And when a stone, I think this is by agreement, I believe it to be by agreement, agrees, or a crystal agrees to be carved into a skull, that essence of that particular crystal is still held within that skull. So Kilgara holds the energy and the essence of a Super 7. But by agreement with the Super 7, other beings or other entities have agreed to be able to use their body, their skull, to come into the skull to work with the human that they're destined to work with. And what I have found through my own personal experience, and I think I'm up around about 80 or 82 skulls now in my personal collection, it's crazy. Each one of them has a specific purpose to be with me. And they are all beings that I have worked with in other timelines. Some people refer to it as past lives or other dimensions. And a lot of these beings are unable to, and just because of the way I'm wired, I like physical things. I like to touch and feel, to know that I'm not totally crazy because of all the stuff I hear in my head, right? So I like to have a touchstone, like a skull. So they know the best way to get to me is when I'm ready for them, when I've reached an evolutionary level that I'm ready to work with that particular being, they will find the skull. And literally how things work, I come across the skull and I know that I have to have it. And they're able to then come in and sort of lower their vibration to a high vibrational skull so that I am able to work with them better and more easier. So for me, crystal skulls are a way that other dimensional beings can work with humans in an easier way, a way that's easier for us to handle, and their vibration doesn't totally blow our circuits. So people talk about channeling a lot. So rather than channeling directly through me, they come through the skull, and then I commune with the skull, because to me, a skull is a friend, and it's my buddy, if that makes any sense. So in general, then, skulls are fantastic tools for evolution and ascension if you're ready for them. Most people, I've never been attracted to skulls until probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then it just started, and it got really bad when I got a master skull called Arthur, who is this citrine with huge rainbows. But after him, the entire High Council fell into place from that. And it's just been this amazing journey, and it has really helped me tune into my guides and my counsel in a much easier way. A lot of people that go into my rooms where I have most of my skulls can't be in there more than a few minutes. They either get physically sick or they get knocked out or nauseous. But I'm so used to being with them, I feel different if I leave my house, because I can't take them all with me. Like I can't throw Kilgara in my bag and carry him with me because he's a 15-pound skull. But to me, that's sort of, in summary, how skulls work.
Wow, I just want like a camera shot of just your room to see them all at some point.
Oh,
Well,
go
if you look
go
at
to her
my
Facebook. Yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah,
you go.
it's on your face. Okay.
If you look at my Facebook page, the main picture there is the High Council, which what I refer to. And Arthur is the center traveler skull, who is a citrine, and then you have a bunch of skulls that are around it. Yeah, they're real, and you actually, just by looking at that picture, will receive the frequency of the High Council. Because energetically, they can reach through media like that, social media.
That's why I'd offered up when you go to Heaven in Earth
Heaven and earth.
crystals, Heaven in Earth crystals on Facebook, and see this for yourself. I asked Carol right away, can I use that for part of the pictures for our, for our thumbnails and such for the YouTube episode? And that's exactly why, to be able to share that. I noticed the citrine now, and now that I have the connection and what you've grounded out for me, and I look at Arthur, I go, oh, okay, nice to meet you. You're not kidding. It's the energy of that is real, and I'm kind of with you. And I was never really attracted to skulls, and then in the last maybe handful of years, about the same as you, that has changed for me. There have been a couple that I've purchased, small ones, and I've been attracted to them more. I want to talk to them. But they find me a little less often than they do you. You said something that was really neat to me, and I'd like to understand and maybe some others would too. And you've said it before, is that there when you're in that energy, like you're in the room with the skulls, the energy is so high that some people have trouble with that. Back when you were talking about master crystals, and even before you were collecting the skulls, you said the same thing about the rooms with the crystals you had then as well. So I'll imagine it's extremely amplified where it is now. But the consistency in that story wants me to know more about how you might help people to recognize that and understand it, and obviously interact with it more successfully, because that's really what you're kind of doing, is they're a facilitator of the energy. So
Right.
how does that work? Help us understand that better, please.
Sure. So basically how crystal work, to talk about how crystals work is to talk really first about how energy works, right? Everything is energy. Humans are entropic or chaotic in their energy fields, right? And you can see this through our emotions. We are not consistent. Put us in the, overtime in a Denver Bronco game. How do you feel there versus sitting on a beach in Hawaii, right? We change, our fields change, our energy changes. And that's because humans entrain to the energy around them. That's just what we do. And crystals, though, however, do not. They have a consistent vibration that they always give out. You can put them anywhere, and they're going to consistently vibe out as a smoky quartz or as a rhodochrosite or as an ocean jasper. It doesn't matter to them. They're consistently vibing. So the magic happens is when you bring crystals into your energy field. We begin to entrain to that particular vibration. So that's why when I first started collecting crystals in this mass chaotic crystal buying spree thing that I was doing about 8 years ago, I could hold a crystal and I could feel it vibrating. I could feel energy running up my arm, or I would put it on my chest and I could feel it. It's because I was entraining to that energy. I had not attuned myself to that particular crystal. For me, and I'm not exaggerating, I have thousands of crystals in my home because I have my store in my home and my own personal collections. So I have become very used to it. And now when I hold a stone, I don't feel the vibration anymore. So people that don't have the addiction problem that I do with crystals and don't have thousands in your house, when they come into my home, they are simply not used to you're getting bombarded with all of these different types of crystals and stones that they have not brought into their field before. So yeah, it feels really like this to them. They're just all really crazy because they haven't worked with all the different crystals and stones that I have. And once you get entrained to them, then you can bring more into you. So when people are first getting started, it's really good to just start one at a time. Like I sleep with at least one skull and 1 or 2 rocks a night. So, and it just depends.
All right. You're a little old to be doing all of that. I'm just saying. Okay.
I know.
Come on, Carol.
My
Yeah,
husband's like has to sleep in a different room because there's no room in the bed with him anymore. He's afraid he's gonna roll over and poke himself to death.
Oh, wow.
Get stoned to death.
That's
Literally
an
get stoned to
entire-
death. Yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
That's an entirely different experience than anyone expected to come across today. That is a whole different perspective for sure.
Example of
They
how
go
our
to the
fields are always
sports bar.
changing. Yeah, but
I got-
so it's important. And then I think what happens to a lot of people too is if you introduce too many crystals at once and you're just not used to it, you really will feel kind of like this. And when you start throwing in crystal skulls who also have other dimensional beings that are attached to them or working through them, that adds a whole nother level. So people can get very buzzed out, and that's just because they're not used to it. And then you'll find the more you collect and the more you spend with them, then the easier it is to sit in. I literally feel very uncomfortable leaving my home and being out in the real world because I'm so used to it. So it takes me longer to put jewelry on for the day than it does for me to dress with clothes because I'm trying to figure out like what my armor is to go out there and keep that energy in my field so I feel comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you for saying it the way you just did.
Yeah,
That
and
was-
did I answer I answered
Oh
the-
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You absolutely answered that question and then some. One of the neat things that the stage here provides for us is a lot of permissions. Not that anybody needs that permission to exercise their free will, but to be able to look at things in a different way and so open about it. And especially when you're talking about the communication with crystals and how that occurs and what that means for folks, whether it's energetic or you're actually hearing and speaking with them or having a deeper experience, that all those things are possible. And there's a reason we're drawn to them for something. Doesn't mean everybody's experience is going to go the same direction or to the same depth, but it is available. It is there. It is a pathway. And I think I know we've got more questions here this evening. I know I have a half a dozen along the way here, but somebody else's turn here to jump in. I think Erin had a question up next.
I do. First of all, this is such a synchronous night. Anyway, I was doing some stuff earlier, coming up with a name for a character in a book, and I landed on a name. I was so excited, and it was Quinn with 2 N's. And then you show up. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then you show the picture. I'm looking at your Facebook and the skulls, and there's 2 on the end that I recognize from visions. They have visited me. So when you said that you can feel energy through screens, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I knew them when I looked at them. So we'll talk about that later, but I know them. It was weird. So
when you're connected to the High Council, welcome to the group.
Okay, chills everywhere. But back to my not knowing stuff about crystals. You said when you showed the big one and you said it had an energy, or you gave it a number, a 7. I'm not sure what that means. And then kind of a different one is you said all the crystals have their own vibration that is steady, but can you change that at all? Do they ever change? Can you add anything to it, or do you subtract from them, or is there a way that you ever make them more powerful? I guess those are 2.
The first thing is Kilgaro is
Bring him out.
if you can see his face, it's like got a bunch of different stuff in it, like he's not all one solid. So he's called a Super 7, and
7.
it's a name of a crystal, and it means
okay.
it's got 7 different minerals that are in it, and I can't list them all on the top of my head, but it's like goethite, smoky quartz, regular quartz, amethyst, and there's some other kind of mineral-y things in there, and you find them in Brazil. That's where you find the Super 7s, and it's a nickname that was given by a person called Melody, who I was certified as a crystal healer through her. She was one of the premier crystal authors back in the day when there wasn't 300 million books on the market. She was one of the originals, the OG, if you will. Um,
I thought it was a rating, so that's interesting.
oh,
that-
no, yeah, no, they're called super sevens. It's a type of amethyst, and it has all these other inclusions in them. As far as changing the frequency or changing the, I would say, no, you can't really do that. But what you can do is, again, I've said this before, they are sentient beings, just like you and I. We come to an agreement and would you get me a cup of coffee? Would you add this to me? Can you help me with this project kind of thing? You can work with crystals and ask them to help you with things. And so you can, what you'll see people write about in books, they'll call it programming. So you can program a crystal to ask to help you with something with intention. And it's just like with anything, you can have a plant and ask the plant to help you heal. If you want to do that, the crystals can do that. They can agree to help you bring information through. Now, I will say specifically things like the Lemurian quartz and what I call record keeper quartz, which you can find on citrines, clear quartz, amethyst. You can find them on rubies, the common rubies, not the really beautiful gem quality ones. There are these little triangles that you find on the faces of quartz. Those are believed to carry information from Lemuria and Atlantis. And so they're like computer chips. Different record keepers will hold information just for you, or they will hold it for people in general. Like a collective message that comes through to work with. So when you catch and happen to come across a record keeper, to me, that is, again, like finding a skull that you're drawn to. Like, I know you. You don't know the skull. You know the being that's working through the skull. That's who you're connecting with. So the beings, many times, I think this is what I'm calling through the drop through crystals, are you probably worked with that particular Lemurian or that record keeper back in the day, recorded information for you to pull out in this timeline, and that's why you found it again. One thing I will say as far as changing the frequency of crystals is there are some crystals, I've heard stories about this, like the rose quartz or obsidian or malachite, they have a certain vibe to them, but they will absorb energy of other people. So a lot of people will use and gift rose quartz to people that are grieving. And so that rose quartz is part of what its vibration does. It's part of what its sole mission is to help people move through grief processes. I've heard people that they crack. They will absorb so much that they eventually will crack. So some stones, again, this is intuitive. I'm naming those three just because that's what comes off the top of my head. But it's something that when you work individually with them, you will know you need to clear those. Clear them being they're still vibrating at what a rose quartz always does, but it's added some junk to its aura. Like we have to clear our aura. You're clearing their aura for them because it gets a little heavy for them because they've picked up some muggle stuff. So you can, there's many ways to clear and clean, and I won't get into that. But
oh yes, you will. You will now, because you just cracked that open. Anybody want to go ahead and take that T-ball question right there?
So with those examples, with obsidian or malachite or rose quartz, I personally have a selenite slab that never needs to be cleared. It's always constantly putting out light. So I put all of my jewelry on my slab every night to clear it. Or if I have to have, there you go. That's something like that.
That's a beauty.
It's perfect to just lay and put stones on it and stuff. But does that answer your question though, Erin? Did I answer your questions
Yeah.
before I go into clearing and cleaning?
No, that was great. That was great. That was perfect. Essentially they stay pretty solid, but there's certain ones that can absorb. So you're not really ever going to ruin or wear down your crystal. It's going to stay there and do what it needs to for you. But
if you can overburden it, right? You can overburden them, and that's just like taking a shower when you roll in the mud, right? You go and take a shower. These crystals, many times, will take a roll in the mud for us on behalf of the humans. They help. That's part of what they do. That's part of their vibe. And then it's good to just clear them, or to, yeah, clear them, re-energize them, if you will. But people, when you buy a crystal, the first thing I do is I wash them with soap and water as a physical cleansing thing, because so many people have touched them. And as I'm watching them, I put my intention, I welcome them to my family. I welcome them to be part of my personal family or to the store, and I'm going to be their caretaker until I can find the appropriate home for them. And then, so that's a physical cleaning. And then you can do an energetic cleansing if you want to. To me, what the crystals have always said is they appreciate the ritual I do around it. It's not necessary for them, but it helps them make a connection with you deeper, because they're taking you, they know that you're taking them serious, that you recognize they are just not this tool you're ripping out to use them up and throw them out and throw them to, or say that you are recognizing them as a conscious, sentient being who has come into your life to be an ally. And so you can do things like smoke is always good. You know, many times after I wash and clean them, I lay them out and I will sage them, or I'll take incense and go around it. Many people put it in the sun or the moon, or you can use tuning forks. You can use sound bowls. You can use Reiki. You can beam. One of my teachers, and my crystal healing certification, said you could beam and clear your crystals through your third eye. You can just beam with intention. And basically what I believe is that it's our own ritual that makes us feel better, but the crystals love it because they know you're serious about them, that you are developing a relationship with them. You're not just using them as just this sidekick thing that you got to add, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like a nurturing piece that you have, and you're building a relationship with your crystal.
I
Love
think
that.
so. To me, it's really important that people understand that they are conscious living beings, and they need to be respected. That you need to be respectful of that, I think, in my personal opinion. But
Well, with the number of stories that you have about how you've come across crystals, I know you've touched a little bit on the skull and how you've had to have it, and probably every one of those in the picture has its own story, quite frankly. But that's been going on for a long time for you. So will you share a little bit about the term we hit on earlier, master crystal, and what that kind of means? And then take us a little bit on that, on what that journey was like for you, however you want to share.
master crystals is a term I personally use when I come into contact with or in companionship with a stone or a crystal that I know is just so high vibe and is bringing in codes from other dimensions that are absolutely integral to the ascension of this planet. And they are just not, please, all of the crystals in my, please cover your ears. They're just not this like common jasper or a common calcite. These are powerful, emanating beings that you can feel. And again, Jason, when I mentioned that name to him several years ago when he was in one of my classes, I was referring to a cathedral amethyst that I have. And I knew that it's a long story and I'll try to summarize it real quick, but that crystal basically was carved by me in a different timeline in a place I call the Asian Temple, which is a crystalline civilization at the bottom of the sea off the Celtic shelf. And everyone that is initiated into the Asian Temple has a crystal that they carve into the shape of what that particular community looks like, because there's many civilizations at the bottom of the ocean, and the government admits it now. So what she holds in that crystal is all of my lifetimes, all of my timelines, and all of the wisdom that I have experienced in all of these expressions of self. So she is used all the time when I make Morse code jewelry. She charges all of that. She charges all of my grids. She charges all of the wands that I make. And what she's doing is she's bringing, just like we are moving in ascension, so are all the crystals and the plants and the trees and the animals. She has kind of because she's another dimensional being, if you will, she's helping these crystals automatically go up to what I call the new Avalon, which is the 5D living, the new earth, whatever you want to call it. So she is much different, and I just intuitively knew that. Arthur is a master crystal. He is the big dog of the High Council, and he is, because of him, he opened the door to all of those other crystals come in, but he kind of waylays everything. He pulls in the Christ consciousness. That's what he does. And that then imbues to all of it's imbued into that picture on the Facebook page. You can pick up and be literally showered in Christ consciousness and the new Avalon energies just by looking at that picture. And then like Kilgaro that I showed you earlier, I consider him to be a master crystal, and his sister, Alina, who is a smaller version of it, Super 7, they, again, through intuition and through communion with them and I guess visions, if you will, I know them, I have worked with them since they were cracked out of the egg. And they were the grandchildren of the master dragons that were first on this planet, which I call there's a whole different inner earth council. The dragon realm was one of them, and there were a certain number of dragons that came in to start to seed the planet. And these guys, I had intervened for their parents in a thing that happened in that timeline. And so they have come through and dropped through every single lifetime with me in one way or another. And so in this lifetime, they have come through as these skulls. So that's
I'm with you in the dragon connection for sure. For on lots of levels. I see them sleeping all over the place in the mountains. And when I've been in Montana, all over Colorado, I see them out west. I've seen them in the Northeast. I see dragons sleeping, just waiting for the time to wake up when the whole mountain comes to life all of a sudden.
oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
beautiful.
you see it in the way through the skulls, right? So you see it in so the connections are there in multiple channels. I think that to me is what expands it. So and says that what doesn't really matter how we're getting there if we're participating in that energy and we're experiencing it's real for us. Yes. The answer is yes, especially when we're talking about a galactic connection. We want to get things moving along. We want some real support. That's the place to get it from.
Right.
Now,
Right. And I was going to say, Arthur himself is an Arcturian. So he's bringing in and seeding a lot of those skulls are galactic in nature, coming from different planets. So there's that weird thing.
I do have a quick question. So, I think it might be two parts. So in this lifetime, I've, since I was a little kid, I've totally been into rocks and crystals. And in college, I was the art student taking geology for fun, took mineralogy, got into the whole crystallography and the physical properties and all that. And just recently, I'd say probably over the past couple of years, got into more of the metaphysical properties. I was reminded that I had a crystal healing some years ago, and the lady told me something kind of odd. And at the time, I didn't believe in past lives. She goes, "Do you believe in past lives?" And I said, "No." Well, at the time, I said no. She said, "This has only happened one other time." She said, "All the crystals want to come out and play with you." She goes, "You were a crystal healer in a past life." And she goes, "I don't know if you believe that." So anyway, I'm, collected some crystals and gemstones and stuff like that. Even got a box of rocks, for my birthday years ago, which I love. And my question is, were I to go to the gem and mineral show or like any store, how do I know if a crystal is destined to work with me? Like, how can I feel the energy? How do I connect to it? That kind of thing.
I think you just answered your own question, right? I mean, it's all intuition. that's what one of the people will come to me when when I'm at a show, and they'll say, "This is the issue I'm dealing with. Help me pick out a crystal." And I'm like, "No, pick them out yourself." And I don't say that rudely. I'm like, I would love to help you pick them out, but I want you to first look at yourself, go through and look. And I think, Marion, you'll know because you will just be so drawn to it. Like you look at them all and you keep going back and you keep picking up that one. And then you put it back like, I don't want to spend the money. I'm gonna look to save $2. I'm gonna go to some more vendors and look. And I can guarantee you don't do that. I have made so many mistakes where I think that I'm going to find a better deal to find whatever, a piece of chrysocolla or something. And I don't. I come back for that one piece and it's already gone. Again, it's just like who you pick as friends. You know, when you walk into a room full of people, where do you want to sit and talk to? There are groups of people you're like, I don't even go near that. I just don't like their energy. They are not vibing with me. Oh, but that person looks so great. I want to sit down with them. That's how you pick out crystals, I think, is just use your intuition. People often will use the idea of they'll Google, I'm going through grief, what are good grief stones? And then they'll do a list of whatever. And you could use it by chakra colors. A lot of people pick stones by chakra colors, and I don't discourage that. But I think that you do a disservice to the crystals and to yourself by following what everybody else does. And you may end up with the same crystal that was recommended on Google, but you have to make that heart connection, and they will tell you that, yes, it is the one. And for me, the rainbows, I call them winks. I know that I have to look at that crystal if it's got a rainbow in it because it's winking at me and it knows I love the rainbow energy. So I hope that answered your question, but I think you knew that. I think you knew that. I mean, I think there is no wrong or right way. What a great way to build your intuition for stones too is buy the stone or find the stone, and before you spend the money, because you don't know if you want to spend the money, and go, God, I just love this so much. Why do I love this stone? This is not what I think I need. Then Google and see, oh, that's why I need it. So it's kind of like you're verifying your intuition by doing it that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, you're a closet crystal healer this lifetime. If she told you, you need to believe it. And I had to be self-taught for many years until I was able to find these two particular people that had crystal healing certification programs. But there's no right or wrong way to call yourself a crystal healer. Anyone that owns a stone and puts it in their pocket is a crystal healer. You're healing yourself emotionally and spiritually, and anyone that comes within your fields. I mean, I think about that all the time as I'm walking by people in the store. Our energy fields are intermingling just for that moment. They're getting some of my crystal sprinkles. So you really are a walking crystal healer. You're just not calling yourself that yet.
Is that where I've been picking up this glitter? That stuff gets everywhere, man.
I do love your vernacular a lot. Like winking, crystal winking. I'm stealing that officially. Crystal sprinkles, that too. I just love your vernacular with the crystals. You're very
Sprinkles are for
attached and
winners.
connected to them. Yeah.
Sprinkles are for winners. That's it. Having an extra pocket to carry crystals around in. I can't tell you how many classes I've been in where somebody does that.
Which, by the way, because I think we're running out of time to talk about grids, but putting stones in your pocket, you're creating a grid. Remember the theme, whenever two or more gather, miracles happen. It's the same thing with crystals. Put two crystals or more together, you've created yourself a grid because it's like a recipe. Individual crystals are individual ingredients: baking soda, salt, flour, chocolate chips. They're all fine, dandy on their own. Mix it together, you have this wonderful chocolate chip. That's what grids do. Putting them in your pocket, you're creating a grid. I've got a grid on my hand because I put all of these stones together. You line them up on the shelf. That is a grid. I guarantee you, if you do that, switch them out a little bit, take one off, move them around, it's not going to feel the same. You put them in a bowl. You've created a crystal grid. So you don't know that you're doing that, but you do it all the time. Me too. I'm constantly gridding and I don't even realize it.
I think you've
Oh.
kind of touched on this question a couple of times, but I just wanted to clarify about the size. If I have one that fits in my pocket, is it just as powerful as a 5-pound one sitting on the shelf?
I'm not going to go there, Jason.
Size matters. Size matters. It was gonna come up. I mean,
Saw you making a face, and I'm like, I can't. I'm being
Sarah-
professional. Stop it, Jason.
Sarah started it. Sarah laughed first because she wants she
Oh
wants me
God,
to
Sarah.
say
All right, we'll blame it on her. Stop it, Sarah.
she wants me to say average. It fits in more places. She wants that to happen on the air because it's a t-shirt, right? It sold a
All
whole
right.
bunch of them, quite frankly.
Oh.
But it's a great question that Darlene has, is what's the and you did touch on it a little bit. So help us understand the power and the size and how to keep those things relative.
The
It's a real
size
question.
the size matters for what your objective is. So if it's simply protecting your energy field when you're going out for the day, a small one in your pocket is perfect, and it protects your auric field, your energy field. If your intention is to clear a room or to create a calmer environment at work, say, then and you want that to kind of radiate out more than just your cubicle area, you would get a bigger stone. So there is no set, so many cubic inches per so many feet is going to protect, kind of radiate out. But stop it, Jason.
Well, yeah, what I'm hearing is size matters, and it depends on the application.
That is correct.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm just trying to be logical. It's 2 scoops of woo. It's 1 scoop of woo and 1 scoop of logic. Okay, we're just trying to keep the information grounded. You dirty
That's
folks,
right.
dirty
So,
naughty folks. I love you all.
The frequency, the energy vibration of the small ruby versus a big ruby does not change. It's still vibing, but it's not a small pocket ruby is not going to reach across a football field and affect the person in the stadium across the way, if that makes sense. So Darlene, yes, it does matter, and it's all relative. And again, it's one of those things, it's intuition. And if someone tells you, oh, you have to get this size to cover this many square feet, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but that's what they received through their connection with the stones. Just verify that with yourself. Like, does that feel right? Or do I really need to spend $600 on it? Can I get by with something that's a little bit smaller? If that makes any sense.
Yes. Think for yourself. That's how you end up sleeping with 3 skulls and your husband's on the couch. Okay, I get it's and openly conflicted as a human being, but still connected in that galactic space. Carol, that's always been one of the things that I've enjoyed, especially about your classes, and I'm so glad that you're coming back out and teaching again. I really would encourage folks to go to Heaven and Earth on Facebook. The link is somewhere in the description. Heaven and Earth is not hard to spell.
Heaven and Earth crystals.
Heaven and Earth crystals. Now, I do want to remind folks, let you guys know that if you want to work with Carol directly, that's how you find her. She keeps saying shop and in her home. That is because this is a boutique kind of thing. Carol really does go out into all of the different places that crystals are available, to lots of the different shows, and personally cultivates and picks out these pieces. That's why she has all the knowledge about what works for her and what mistakes she's made and what to go ahead and pick up. Not to mention, frankly, she doesn't toot her own horn in it, but the people that she's gotten the certifications from, Naisha, Shane, and Melody, those are the legends in crystals. Those are the folks that have been teaching it for 50 years plus. Melody has such an extensive knowledge and has shared so much in crystals. Her books have been out of print and are hard to get. I have a number of them, but they don't even have pictures in them, folks. They're just descriptions straight up. That's how OG we're talking about with that. And Carol, thank you for being in a space to continue that on, and the knowledge and the depth, and to really give people permission to express and connect in not just the pretty ways, but in the ways beyond. And that's what Two Scoops of Woo is about, is keeping it grounded and keeping it spiritual at the same time. So thank you for showing up in that tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
We did a good thing here, and we got the crystal grids in there at the end. Right? We might have to do another one about crystal grids. We've had it's come up a couple of times. So maybe Carol, you'd come back and tell us more about that. And I know dragons and specifically activating crystals, and how we can use them ourselves. And are we really activating, or it sounds to me more like a collaboration,
It is, yeah.
is the way to look at that. And that philosophy changes the whole game. So I think
charging versus maintaining, I'd be interested in too. And we'll try and keep it PG-13 too. The bigger is better question, we're trying to
when you upload this on YouTube, there's a little box that says not for children or not for kids.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're good. We can be real. So thank you to the cast, and Carol, thank you for showing up for us this evening. We're here at Two Scoops of Woo, asking metaphysical questions out loud and getting some pretty good answers, and running right up against whether we're gonna continue to have a channel or not. Yay! So one last time, Carol, thank you, and we will see everybody in the next episode.
Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Bye.